Okay, let's dive right in. Right now, India is at this huge turning point, staring down two of the biggest, most connected challenges of our time: how to remake its food system and how to transform its energy system. This explainer is all about these twin transitions.
We're going to tackle this in 4 parts. And for both food and energy, we'll start with the problem, the hidden costs, the paradoxes, and then we'll get into the exciting part, the solutions that could actually lead to a better, more just future.
First up, food. India is an agricultural powerhouse. It's the second largest food producer on the entire planet. It's an incredible success story. But, and this is a big but, that success has come at a pretty steep and often totally invisible cost to the environment.
Just wrap your head around this number for a second. A staggering 26%. 26% of all global greenhouse gas emissions come from industrial agriculture. That's insane. The way we grow our food is literally a massive driver of climate change.
So how did we get here? Well, the system that turned India into a food giant is really a legacy of what's called the Green Revolution. And what that means is it relies on planting these enormous areas with just 1 or 2 crops, we're talking wheat and rice mostly, and then just pumping them full of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the trap this whole system creates. A lot of these chemical fertilizers, stuff like ammonium nitrate, were actually, get this, repurposed for materials used to make explosives back in World War II. Wild, right? So yeah, they give you a big boost in crops in the short term, but over time they just destroy the soil's natural fertility. And this pushes farmers into this horrible, vicious cycle. They have to use more and more chemicals just to get the same results, which of course just damages the soil even more and releases even more greenhouse gases.
Okay, but what if the very thing causing the problem could also be the solution? That's what we're diving into next. And the hope for a better way, well, it's quite literally right there under our feet.
The big goal here is to shift towards what we call sustainable food systems. And here's the crucial part. This isn't just about cranking out more calories. It's a whole new way of thinking. It's about building healthy soil, being fair to farmers, making sure everyone gets nutritious food, and, being good to the planet.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. It's a night and day difference. Where industrial farming destroys soil and pumps out carbon, sustainable methods do the exact opposite. They actually build soil health, they save water, and this is the real game changer, they can turn farmland into a giant carbon sink, actively pulling CO2 right out of the atmosphere.
So the big question is, how do we actually do this? Well, as you can see, there's no single magic bullet. It's more like a whole toolkit of strategies. We're talking about big policy shifts, like getting rid of harmful subsidies that basically force farmers to use chemicals. It's also about empowering people, strengthening farmer groups and making it easier to share local traditional knowledge. And it involves all of us too, by being more aware consumers, supporting things like urban farming, and really just fundamentally rethinking what success even looks like in our food system.
And that's the key takeaway here. This whole transformation, it isn't just up to governments or farmers, it's about all of us. I love this quote from the writer Wendell Berry. Eating is an agricultural act. Think about that. Every single choice we make about the food we buy sends a ripple through the entire system.
All right, let's switch gears to that second big transition: energy. The invisible force that powers pretty much everything in India's development. And this is where we hit what you could call the energy paradox.
This chart really says it all, doesn't it? The sun showers the planet with more energy than we could ever possibly use. But India's grid, it's overwhelmingly powered by fossil fuels. Look at that. A massive 70% of its electricity comes from burning coal. That makes coal the primary engine of both the country's growth and its carbon emissions.
But here's the thing. This energy is not shared equally at all. You can almost picture it like an energy tree. Up at the top, you've got industry and wealthy city folks getting all the abundant, reliable power they want. But down at the roots, you've got hundreds of millions of people in rural areas dealing with constant blackouts or still having to rely on polluting stuff like wood and dung for their basic needs. It's a system with deep, deep inequality baked right in.
And the companies that are supposed to distribute all this power, they're called discoms, they are stuck in what's known as a financial death spiral. Here's how it works. First, they lose money selling subsidized power. Then, their best customers, the wealthy city users, start putting solar panels on their roofs and just leave the grid. So the financial burden then falls on fewer and fewer people. And guess who gets hit the hardest? The rural poor, who end up with even worse service.
So how in the world do you fix a system that's both terrible for the environment and fundamentally unfair? Well, let's look at the new vision for powering a better future.
Now, India has some really ambitious goals for renewable energy, which is fantastic. It's a huge step. But the real solution has to be a two-pronged attack. First, yes, absolutely, switch to clean sources like solar. But second, and this is the part we often forget, we have to reduce our overall energy consumption. We just have to power down.
And why is that so important? Well, because of this tricky little psychological trap called the Jevons paradox. It's this super counterintuitive idea that when our gadgets and appliances get more energy efficient, we tend to just use them more, which can completely wipe out any of the energy savings. See, efficiency alone isn't enough. The real goal has to be sufficiency.
And that brings us to the most crucial point of all. This big shift to clean energy has to be a just transition. That's the whole idea behind energy justice. It means we have to create new jobs and new livelihoods for all the people who currently depend on the coal economy. It means using decentralized renewables, like local solar microgrids, to finally bring reliable and affordable power to the very communities that have been left in the dark for generations.
So, when you step back and look at the big picture, India's food and energy systems aren't two separate problems at all. There are these deeply interconnected challenges of sustainability and fairness. Both of them are carrying this heavy legacy of environmental damage and social inequality. But you know what? Both of them also hold the keys to a much more resilient future. These systems aren't just these abstract forces out there, they're the sum of billions of our individual choices every single day. And that really leaves us with one final, powerful question to think about. What choices are we going to make tomorrow?